Morning, gentlemen. Thank
Morning.
you so much for being here. I'm not usually nervous on stage, but I really am quite right now.
Not nervous for me, Jasper, no?
Because of you. John, I'm going to start with you though. John, you are the global head of brand partnerships for HSBC. Why brand partnerships? Why do they hold such a significant place within the portfolio? What's the purpose behind them for the bank? And we are talking about purpose a lot later as well. And I think contextually for today, why is rugby considered to be such a core pillar?
Well, I mean, firstly, thank you for having me today, and very nice to be sat in front of all of you. Brand partnerships are, an incredibly flexible communications platform as a whole. Depending on where you are as a brand, where you are in a category, the maturity of your market dictates why any brand embarks on brand partnerships, and that's absolutely no difference with us. So there are no hard and fast rules about why a brand does brand partnerships, but fundamentally, the fundamental basics of a brand partnership is that you are able to drive that emotional connection between a brand and a fan. And if you do that and you align, you're communicating your aligned values, your aligned interests, you're fundamentally saying to your customers that you have similar interests, similar values, and therefore you can be a trusted organization to them. And hopefully at that point you then get within their consideration set, and you become a preferred brand. So very broadly, that's what we try and do. All of our brand partnerships play very different roles for us around the world, depending on whether you're in Asia or in the Middle East or the UK. So we don't have any specific objectives that run unilaterally across all of our partnerships across the world. But actually what they do allow us to do is tell our story of internationalism. So, excuse me, what we class as our superpower at HSBC, and through all of our partnerships, be it rugby, be it badminton, be it golf, we sponsor internationally connected events that travel around the world and bring the best athletes, the best events to you, wherever you may be sitting in the world. Now, whilst they play slightly different roles, depending on where you are and depending on what that event is, fundamentally, we are communicating our internationalist superpower to our customers around the world, and that is an absolute fundamental to us, and the Rugby 7 series certainly does that. Obviously comes to Hong Kong, but also there are 7 other stops around the world that enables us to do that. So fundamentally bringing that internationalist story alive to our customers is the core of what we do around our rugby partnership, around our partnerships generally. But there are nuances about where we go with individual partnerships in different parts of the world.
We were, actually not a question, but we were involved with the HSBC women's golf recently in Singapore. We organised a conference around it. It was absolutely fantastic. Brilliant setup, brilliant, just great tournament. So yeah, there was a lot of fun to be involved. Brian, welcome to Hong Kong.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Hong Kong Sevens. What is it as a player, or as a rugby player, what is it that you think has given it its iconic reputation as a pinnacle of opportunity for Rugby Sevens players?
Well, I think, first of all, thanks for having me as well. Unfortunately, I was a player of the 15s game rather than the 7s game, so I never had the opportunity to come to the Hong Kong Sevens as a player. As a 20-year-old, I got capped for Ireland kind of from obscurity, and so I missed my opportunity that year to play against some of the best players in the world, some of the best athletes. But it's you talk about the opportunity piece. You look at in the past about the brilliant players that have emerged in the 15s games, or indeed those that have played over a decade for their national team in sevens, remarkable athletes. The names fall out. Think about Jonah Lomu and Christian Cullen, these amazing 15s players that ultimately broke through into the national team through sevens. On top of that, this time around, for the second year running, we've got the women competing at the Hong Kong Sevens, long overdue, and also now the Melrose Shield, where there's investment in Asian teams, where there's a focus towards the continued development of the game. So you want to play against the best teams, the best players in the world, and this is the flagship event. This is the one that everyone earmarks year on year going, we want to win Hong Kong Sevens. Okay, maybe it's an Olympic year, and that's the eyes are on the prize for that. But for the other 3 years in the cycle, Hong Kong is a tournament that you want to turn up for and deliver your best.
I think is it 40 this year? The Sevens?
40 years.
Yeah.
1976.
Nearly then. Okay.
Born 40 years.
Okay. My maths isn't.
48 years.
And we do have a lot of similarities. I also didn't play sevens. John, we mentioned the HSBC Sevens. You have re-signed as the title partner this year, and I've been watching the various tournaments all over the world. The branding's fantastic, if I can just add that as a personal comment. What's new about the series, and why did HSBC continue the long-standing partnership?
So, we've got a long-standing association with World Rugby, and the fundamentals of that don't change. It is a wonderful series of events that travels around the world. Obviously with the jewel in the crown being here in Hong Kong, and that is incredibly important to us. As an organisation, Hong Kong runs through our DNA. So to be part of not only the biggest sporting event, but arguably one of the biggest cultural events in the city is incredibly important. So just maintaining Hong Kong is an association with this tournament is incredibly important. You then go beyond that to the other 7 tournaments with World Rugby, and actually what they've done is they've repositioned the 7 series to a younger audience. They want to bring more people into the game, and that very much aligns with what we're trying to do as an organisation. We have to be very cognizant of our future business and actually targeting a younger audience, because they will ultimately become the business leaders of tomorrow, and mortgages and credit cards, etc., etc. So we have to strike that balance between new and existing customers, and the new 7 series allows us to do that and make sure that we remain relevant to that younger audience. And as Brian touched on, I think what we're very proud of is contributing to the fact that women also now have equal billing on the 7 series, and that absolutely aligns with us as an organisation, that gender parity, whether you're a colleague of ours or whether any of the partnerships that we associate with around the world, that's really, really important to us as a value as an organisation. As I said earlier, that aligning of values is something that is very, very important to us as a business. So you combine the 3 of those and you go, it's actually a really easy decision to make internally to continue supporting World Rugby. And we've been going for a long time, and hope and expect that relationship will be continuing long in the future.
Fantastic. And here on the women's rugby, and I mentioned earlier, we've got Nolly Waterman, another of your ambassadors, here with us later this afternoon. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from her. Now, not only the co-title partner with Cathay of the Hong Kong Sevens, and Ed Bell might be in the room already. He's from Cathay, speaking a little bit later this morning. But you are also a long-standing sponsor of the Hong Kong-China rugby team. How are you playing a role in shaping rugby here in Hong Kong?
As I said, I think as an organisation, Hong Kong runs through our DNA. So to be supporting the city for societal good is really important to us, and it really is one of our sort of key objectives. And I think going back to the broader theme of this conference of how sport is a power for good, and it's something that we really believe in. And whether sport teaches young people particularly really important life lessons from respect and teamwork and personal hygiene to nutrition. Brian wouldn't be sat here today if he'd been eating rubbish all of his career. So those life lessons are really important to us, and using rugby as that vehicle to do that is an absolute priority. And the fact that over our Try Rugby program we put 67,000 kids rugby balls in their hands and enable them to introduce them to this fantastic sport that we all love, it provides that vehicle not only for societal good, but hopefully creates fans, elite players, coaches, administrators for the future. And that really is the basis of our relationship with the Hong Kong Rugby Union, Hong Kong China Rugby Union, as well as the big show that's going on this weekend. But from a deeper perspective, we're not just an organisation that comes in and badges the big event. We need a far deeper relationship with our partners, and that's where we see there's the most value to us as an organisation, but also we have an obligation, given our standing within the city, to do that.
Fantastic. Brian, back to the players, we're seeing that there's a number of 15s players who are making a transition to sevens, including the Wallaby Michael Cooper, who's making his debut here in Hong Kong. What do you see as the biggest challenge they will face, and why do you think they're making the big leap?
Well, I think it began really back in 2016, before the Rio Olympics, where a number of 15s players thought, an Olympic gold medal, I'd fancy having one of those hanging around my neck. With limited success, it must be said. Their capacity or ability to be able to translate their form from 15s into sevens, it's a significantly different game. The skill set is different. You can't just flick a switch. And so there have been some that have managed to play both codes, but there's another player many people will know, one of the best players in the world, Antoine Dupont, who's not here this weekend, who's going to be competing for France in his home Olympics in Paris. But Michael Hooper is a really interesting one, because Michael Hooper, for those that don't know you, Wallaby captain 75, 80 times. He was the youngest player ever to achieve 100 caps for his country. Playing in the number 7 jersey for Australia is a pretty remarkable feat, 125 plus caps. To achieve all of that and then to swap across to sevens is pretty remarkable. I talked about my journey of playing 15s before I ever had the chance of playing sevens. For me, sevens is a young person's game. You need a naivety to the pain that you're going to be suffering out there, and then all of a sudden, you're in the mix, and you go, okay, you're managing. The problem is you have lots of scar tissue as a 30-year-old, mentally and physically, from playing over a long period of time, and then he's trying to go across and do something somewhat unfathomable, go and compete in a very competitive Australian team and push himself, push the boundaries and try and compete for an Olympic gold. The challenges are, in sevens, if you watch over the weekend, if anyone at any point in any game takes a break for their side, they'll just take a little rest. It's a try scored against you. So there's no switching off. 7 minutes mightn't seem very long. Try and stand out in a pitch with 13 other guys running around at top speed and not feel stressed. So the fact that there's no break, you always have to be on the move. The ruck is very different. The capacity to be able to control your breathing, to bring your energy levels at the vital times, to communicate through body language, through voice communication. All of these are learned skills, and so to be able to immediately transfer them across from playing 15s to 7s is not a fait accompli. So I think we wish him very well. If we've got I know there's that HSBC on their YouTube channel have done an 11-minute video that's worth 11 minutes of your time. He talks about the balance of fear and excitement being about 50-50, and I accept that that's probably about the ratio. My fear would be somewhere around the 90% mark, but he's a better athlete than I ever was.
Fantastic. We'll look out for that link and send it to everyone. John, the sevens the HSBC Sevens is one of many partnerships. We touched on the women's golf in Singapore. Tell us about the others that you have here in the region and why they are strategic for HSBC.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Asia is vitally important to us as an organisation, and as a result, our partnerships portfolio fully reflects that. And actually, what partnerships enable us to do is it's a very active communications platform, because you are engaging in people's passion points rather than a passive communications medium where traditional ambient media maybe. So. Engaging our customer base within our broader partnerships is really important, and that has to be culturally relevant to where we are in the world. So as an example, we're a title partner of the Badminton World Federation, which is 31 events that travel around the world with the top men's and women's players competing in those events, culminating in the tour finals in Hangzhou in China at the end of the year. And that is, you know, an incredibly important partnership for us, but it's very Asia specific because the sport just isn't as large in Europe as it is in Asia, but the value we drive from it is incredibly important. So being culturally relevant, but also still having that internationalist positioning and communicating that internationalist brand value is very, very important to us. You mentioned the HSBC Women's World Championship in Singapore. Again, you know, one of the biggest sporting events that hits Singapore. The 18 of the top 20 women's golfers were in attendance this year. I mean, that simply doesn't, outside the majors, that doesn't happen in the men's game. So to bring those top women's golfers and attract them from around the world into Singapore, it is, in terms of size of our events and importance of our events in the region, it's probably only second to the Hong Kong Seven. So we have, you know, these wonderful partnerships that visit the whole of Asia. And they are just culturally relevant in the places where they're hosted, but there's this sort of overlying theme of internationalism. And then obviously, you know, we work with Brian, but one of our biggest brand ambassadors is Emma Raducanu. And while she isn't an event in herself, she absolutely epitomizes us as an organization. She's a successful young woman, Chinese mother, Romanian father. I mean, she is the ultimate internationalist. And so she is the epitome of our business. And so whilst, you know, events are very important, how we align with our partners, and bringing Emma, she was in Hong Kong in December, you know, the reception she got and the value we drove from her for bringing her to the great city of Hong Kong was, you know, the value we got from it was absolutely amazing. And she, as I say, she is the epitome of what we are as an organisation. So Asia will always be very, you know, an absolute priority for us as a business. And as a result, our partnerships portfolio will fully reflect that, and it always will do.
Fantastic. Brian, speaking of partnerships, off the field, you have been involved in various philanthropic efforts and business ventures. Are you working on anything interesting at the moment? And what is the importance of partnerships such as with HSBC? And you've got to be nice now. But
well, I have been lucky. I've worked with HSBC for nearly 15 years now. And for me, really good partnerships look at three things. They obviously look at the here and now, the sponsorship of a team or a competition or an event. It's all important from the commercial side of being able to, you know, run the teams and the events. First and foremost, that's vital. But then there's the legacy piece. What difference do you actually make? And if I go back to 2009, when I started with HSBC, they were a sponsor of the British and Irish Lions. Down in South Africa, they built a pitch in one of the townships in Soweto. And so the legacy they left was long after the competition was finished. Those facilities were still being used by thousands of kids. And I think that's what it's about, around leaving your mark in a positive way. And then on the flip side of that is looking to the future, the next generation. And grassroots initiatives are a massive part of what HSBC does, and particularly here in Hong Kong. The HSBC Try Rugby campaign has been hugely successful. There's over 50% of certified PE teachers in primary schools across Hong Kong have been able to show, you know, kids that have never picked up a rugby ball before, the values and the enjoyment that can be derived from the friendships, the camaraderie, the respect that rugby teaches you. Nearly 500,000 kids globally have managed to be part of this campaign, and it's massively important that we always look at future-proofing the game. There's a competitive environment out there in all sports. You know, there's certain sports that dominate globally, and so we always have to make sure that we are bringing that next generation through and showing them the things that offered us so much value. Me as a player, John as a player, and as a supporter, and now working in the sport. You can never get cocky or get confident that you've got it all solved. The world is ever evolving, sport is ever evolving, and you have to evolve with it and make sure that you're staying ahead of the curve. And I think campaigns like that, future-proofing the sport is massively important.
And I'm going to, we're running close on time, so I'm going to hog you here, Brian. What is the most important life lesson that you've learned from travelling on the road as a player and now with your post-playing career with HSBC?
Maybe the traveling, I think maybe the international network and the people you meet. I think everyone knows in the business that you all work in, you can have the best idea in the world, but it's ultimately about the people. And the people move from one job to the next. And as much as it's a world of 7.5 or 8 billion people, I don't know the exact number, it's funny how small and how often it's the same faces that you come across and you bump into. And sometimes networking is seen as a little bit of a dirty word, you know, around trying to position yourself. But sometimes networking is about connecting people that you know, not for the betterment of yourself, but actually just to be able to join people up, align people that are like-minded and that need a helping hand. And I'm a big believer in what comes around goes around. Eventually, you might find its way back to you, but it's not all about the betterment of yourself, but making sure that, you know, you remember the people that you've met along your journey, and you never know, you know, whether you might be able to help them out in the future or vice versa. So I guess that.
What an amazing way to finish this session, Brian. We've talked about, John, you mentioned that it's all about engaging people's passion points. I'm going to steal that quote for many events to come. You obviously talk about partnerships being brand value, talk about purpose, diversity, using sport as a power for good, and that's going to be a theme running through the day, and especially into the next session as well. Talked about having a positive legacy, being future-proof. We talked about, but you finished that there on the importance of connectivity, and to quote you, it's all about the people. And what a lovely way to finish this. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Brian. Have a brilliant weekend at the Sevens. Thank you so much for joining.